World War III has already begun. How the history books describe the beginning will depend on how it ends. How it ends will be determined by how the public reacts to the shockwaves to come. This cannot be predicted, but it can be influenced.
Really another successful job. We're very, very proud of our military.
We cannot allow Vladimir Putin to succeed here.
The U.S. has reportedly launched dozens of cruise missiles at a Syrian government target.
North Korea's military has issued a statement warning it would annihilate American troops in South Korea, quote, within minutes.
The U.S. has dropped a large bomb in eastern Afghanistan.
The current state of U.S.-Russia relations is at a low point.
North Korea is going to be attacked. They will use nuclear weapons.
One of the reasons that I was elected, one of the reasons that I'm standing here is called people want their military to be strong.
We all know the atomic bomb is very dangerous. Since it may be used against us, we must get ready for it. We must get ready for it. We must get ready for it. We must get ready
for it. Anytime the ruling class gets an inkling that we, the people, might unify on a higher ideal, join forces in the face of an existential threat, you'll always see them start sowing the seeds of division, triggering artificial group identities, pitting you against each other over trivia. Once in play, the temptation to join a side is overwhelming, and very few resist. Divide and conquer is an applied science. They know exactly how to ring your bell, and they'll go out of their way to promote any narrative that adds to the hate. If they succeed, the result is always the same. Resistance is dissipated, drowned out by the roar of petty squabbles, while the war machine advances. This is our first enemy, and it must be attacked head on.
But now we turn to racial tensions in America.
What do you say to the people who dragged a poor white guy out of a car and beat him?
Oh my goodness, poor white people, please, oh my, stop it.
I said I'm tired of being peaceful and tired of being calm. You know, they've been going to war on us for over 400 years, so hey, I ain't peaceful. I ain't no protest. I'm violent.
The path to war is always paved with crowd psychology. Those who don't understand this science are easy to manipulate. Activists who ignore or fail to work within its laws are rendered ineffective, or worse, utilized as pawns. They don't teach you about this stuff in school, for obvious reasons. This is the science of power, the psychology of control. An informed populace would recognize their tactics, neutralizing the effect. They would also have the tools to strike back, turn the tables, and fundamentally restructure the system. The status quo would be destroyed. The stakes are far too high to play it safe now, and we don't have much time. So we're going to break this down from the 30,000-foot view. The only way to stop a war when you have a government which is fully in the pocket of the military-industrial complex is to reach the mind behind the trigger.
You can do it in the army.
Break the chain of obedience. A contingent of the police and military must turn. This is easier said than done, and most who try sabotage themselves in the first few words. They fail to understand the group identities they are working with. Soldiers are conditioned to obey. They are regimented using extremely efficient authority and conformity structures, and have a very strong and inflexible group identity. They are typically the last element of society to flirt with disobedience or insurrection. They only turn if a large enough civilian contingent that they identify with pressures them to. In the United States, military personnel overwhelmingly identify as conservative. Therefore, U.S. soldiers would only consider disobeying a direct order or pointing their guns in a different direction if enough conservatives turn. You could field a crowd of 20 million progressives and it wouldn't even register. The conservative worldview frames the left as the outgroup, just like the left views them. And any message that can be framed as coming from the enemy camp is automatically rejected out of hand.
Racism, fraud, conflict of interest, homophobia, sexual assault, transphobia, white supremacy, misogyny, ignorance, white privilege.
Bigotry and distrust and a certain kind of supremacy.
We have to do something about it. I'm sorry to have to put this out there, but it's not just going to be about coming to demonstrations like this. We're going to have to put ourselves on the line. I'm sorry to say this.
What you've got is big giant mega banks funding a bunch of communists and cop killers and other organizations that want to start martial law in this country and derail our elections.
Hey y'all, my name is Mangina, and I'm a gender fluid, two-spirit, transracial, Muslim atheist, otherkin feminist, anti-racist, social justice warrior.
Prepare a speech for you. Well, a few remarks, really. Feminism is cancer. Thank you very much.
Conservatives tend to be older, more established, with little appetite for catastrophic change. And right now, the man they voted for is in power. The spark of insurrection almost always begins with people who are young enough to still have hope and crazy enough to actually do something about it. This demographic also tends to lean left. To further complicate matters, these two group identities have grown farther and farther apart in recent years, and have even diverged linguistically. The only way to inspire a break in the chain of obedience is to build a coalition that is able to work with and ultimately steal market share from both of these group identities, galvanizing them in opposition to a common threat, like thermonuclear war, and defining an identity against a new outgroup. The madmen and useful idiots pulling us towards it, aka the neoliberal neocon corporate alliance.
You may not have to cozy up with a bunch of leftist loontards.
Ooh, I don't even want to be in a room with these misogynist bigots. We get it. You hate each other. They are not us. They're the outgroup. They're a hostile tribe that you're being forced to share a territory with. But then, something horrific happens. An event that sends shockwaves through the culture, leaving deep psychological scars. At that moment, petty disagreements will be set aside. The political and media establishment will rally the masses towards their solution: war. You might hate each other now, but in times of war, you'll unify behind a flag. The outgroup will be redefined in geopolitical terms, and most will fall for it. A newfound sense of patriotism will wash over the nation, like alcohol to cover the fear, and the executive will be elevated to godlike status. Daddy is going to take care of you now. All you have to do is obey. And then laws like the Patriot Act and the NDAA, on the books for years but never fully implemented, will suddenly become terrifyingly relevant. There will be absolutely no restraints on power. In such times, group identity can be reshaped, rendered more obedient. Those who speak out will be branded un-American, or worse. Exposing government lies will become an act of treason. Examples will be made to set the tone. The rest will either cower in submission or flee. It will all be reminded of the saying, war is the health of the state. If they win, then they get to reset the system. Wipe $20 trillion of debt off the board. Blame the collapse of stock, bond, and derivative bubbles on an external boogeyman, and have a controlling stake in the next global financial system. But this isn't going to go according to plan. And once a certain line is crossed, there will be no undo option. Wouldn't it be better to come to terms with the stakes, as terrifying as they may be, and unify ourselves on something worthwhile, a common ground that any sane human being can agree on, rather than let them have their way with us? Could we agree to unify just long enough to stop World War III? Could we not learn this lesson the hard way? A lot of you have already been feeling scared. These emotions are normal, and as the show progresses, you'll have more and more company. But it's not going to help us here. When afraid, our brains work much less efficiently. The rational, introspective areas shut down, and decisions are reduced to fight